Okay, so let's follow the example here that we want to be able to create new courses, retrieve courses, update courses, delete courses, and map to those endpoints. So let's see what we have here in our code. Looks like we don't have much. Demo applications test. Okay, we don't have much here. All right, so we do have. Do we have a main web app? Okay, so we do have an index, and I believe this probably was our jQuery place we were playing around with jQuery. Right? We're not going to use jQuery anymore. Instead, we're going to use it as a place to host our data model. All right, so we're going to create under this root direct path here, not outside, under here. And it'll be apparent next week why. If you do it under that default package, a lot of magic happens. Right? That if you put it outside, the magic doesn't happen. Okay. Basically, you can put it anywhere you want, but then you have to configure a whole bunch of things. Right? You have to register this as services. You have to register some objects as entities. And whereas if you put it under this this package, the package is already has been registered, right? So if you put it under here, a lot of magic happens, right? So I'm going to put under here a class, and here we're going to put under a brand new package. We're going to have here course. And the course is going to have something like a private integer ID and private string title. And we're going to add here setters and getters for each one of these. And this is already going to follow the naming convention, the Java Beans naming convention. Notice that it's all lowercase set and get. And then the title is then camel cased. Okay, that's the naming convention. As long as you follow that, a lot of magic happens. All right, that's it. So we have a really simple data model. Let's leave it at that. And in here, let's in addition, notice that we put it under the dot model, and I think it should have been models. There we go. All right, I'll leave it. I'm not going to argue. All right, so that it's better if it's plural. Additionally, we're going to create here a service, and I'm going to put it under a services with an S, and I'm going to put here a course service.java. There we go. So what we want to be able to do here is expose the data model that we just created, right? Maybe create a couple of objects in here, perhaps something like let's see, what do we have here? Let's create a course, CS5610, new course. Let's see, maybe we can create a constructor here, source create constructors. And with those arguments, very good. Save that, and this might be 1, 2, 3, and CS5610. Okay. Notice that I created a constructor that takes all the arguments. See that? That means that I have just lost the default constructor. Okay. And part of the Java Bean convention is that you have a default constructor. Right? So if you overrode the constructor, you have to create one with no arguments. All right? That's just Java. All right, so let's create a couple more. Course CS4500, new course 234, and this would be CS4500. And let's create an array of courses that contains CS 5610 and CS 4500. Okay? All right. And what I'd like to be able to do is expose this and be able to retrieve the courses as an array. Find all courses. And we're going to return all courses. All right? Oops, courses, course. Right. Now, this is just plain Java. So I could write another Java class that calls this, and it works. But the magic that we want is not to just have Java have access to this. We want anybody that has a network connection, an HTTP browser, to be able to hit this, right, and retrieve this data. That's the magic that we want to add here, right? And so the way to do that is to declare this to be a RESTful controller. Controller, there it is, right? With that annotation, that right there makes this available in the URL, right? Now we haven't told it what to map it to, what URL to use. And so to do that, we can additionally use it, map it to any number of HTTP mappings, right? Get, post, put, delete. Since this is presumably to retrieve all the courses, we would use, by convention, we would use get. Okay. The other is that we would map it to, also the convention is that you would map it to the plural, right, of the noun that describes whatever this is. In this case, it's courses, right? So we'll use the courses noun. Yes? Plural because it's a whole bunch of them, right? It's fine, all of them. Excellent. So that's it. That's all we need. Let's kick this off here, and let's run this. Okay, it looks like it's listing at 8080, and so we can hit this by saying localhost 8080/courses. And there they are, right? So that's a JSON representation of that array converted into a JSON representation. Notice the data types, right? The integers were converted into integers, strings were converted into strings. Now JavaScript it's less strongly typed than Java, where Java might have doubles and floats and integers and longs and all these data types. JavaScript just has number. That's it. Right, and it captures everything that has to do with numbers. So it's less strongly typed than Java. All right, excellent. So we have find. What about something else? How about being able to retrieve one particular course, for instance, by the ID? Right. For instance, you might want to do. You'd like to be able to do public a particular course. I want to retrieve one course if you tell me. Find course by ID, right? If you tell me the ID, I will go and find it for you. I'm going to iterate, right? So I'll say for int I or for course and courses, right? I can check to see. So if the course that I'm looking at, right, get ID equals the ID that you passed me as an argument, I'm going to return it to you. So return the course. Otherwise, at the bottom of this, I'm just going to return null. Right? If I didn't find it. I didn't find any courses. Yes? Again, this is plain Java. It could be invoked by other Java classes. But the magic that we want to introduce here is being able to expose this, right, to the world. Anybody who has an HTTP connection. So what we're like to, since it's a read operation, I'm retrieving data from the server, right? We would use a get mapping instead, right? To retrieve things. Now notice, yes.
If you try to create a new course and the course ID is an int, if you try to send it 12.5.
Yeah, it'll fail.
Sort of like expected behavior there.
Yeah, it'll fail trying to parse it and convert. You get an exception saying that it was not able to. Parse the.
We try to prevent that from happening on the Java side by.
Yeah, you can configure what to do with it if you want to do a ceiling or whatever. Yep. So here we want to retrieve a particular course and distinguished by its unique identifier. Now notice here that I have two endpoints that are mapped to the same URL. Right? If I try to restart the server, it's going to complain. It says I found two endpoints that are and they're ambiguous. Right? I don't know which one. If I see this URL, I don't know which one you mean. Is this function or that other function? Right? You won't see it at compile time. You only see it when it starts, when the server starts. So it won't complain until you start the server. So instead, we need to make a unique, and so here we have user ID. Right? And what I'd like to be able to do is parse that user ID placeholder and then map it internally to parse that path variable whose name is user ID, and then convert it to this integer data type, right? Which I can then use here internally for retrieving that particular instance. Right? So I can restart the server. Okay, and so this one still works, but if I instead I say 1, 2, 3, right, it only returns CS5610 or 234 4500, or if I give it some bogus value, right, it just returns null and it dies. Okay, it gives me 404. Okay. So the other addition to this is that notice that earlier at the beginning of the course we were using this same web server, right, to host our jQuery, our HTML, our CSS, to host what the server considers to be static. Right? All this HTML, these are all just static files from the point of view of the server. Right? They're dynamic when they get to the client and jQuery runs on the browser. But from the point of view of the server, these are all static content. Yes. Whereas this is dynamic content. Right? I'm calculating it. Right? It's not always the same. I have to iterate and calculate if statements and branches and whatnot. I'll return certain things one time and the other things. So this, as far as the browser's server is concerned, this is that dynamic content. Right? Now this content is not meant for human consumption, even though we're hitting it with a browser. Right? All the HTML and CSS and JavaScript was meant for consuming it for a human being. This is not meant for human being consumption. Right? It's just data. Right? It's unless they're matrix and you can consume this. Yeah, my daughter was looking at looking over my shoulder and coding this, and she says this looks just like the Matrix. Especially because I use a green background for my. So we have these two worlds. Right, the static content for human consumption, and we have this dynamic data access, right, that is meant for programmatic access, yes, and hosted by the same server. So we need to come up with a convention so that there is a clear distinction between these two worlds. Okay? So the convention is that typically we're going to prepend our data access endpoints with a token that we know of, right, that we all understand and agree that anything that starts with this token is for data access. Right? It's not meant for human consumption. Right? It's data access. One of the more popular tokens is /API, but you can sometimes find /REST, /data, right? Whatever your team agrees or corporation or whatever agrees at what the convention should be. Right? If we refresh and restart, the old queries obviously will fail. Right, so this one will give an error. 234 will give an error unless you have /API. Then it'll return the object. Make sense? All right. All right. Excellent. Let's look at maybe creating some data.